Guys, welcome back to Mids from the middle of the Midwest. I'm actually standing today. Got to adjust some things around. So, we're going to do a few segments on socioeconomic issues. Goes a little bit far afield from the sexual marketplace, but we'll tie it all together. And I think you guys, Mids audience, you really smart guys, I know you can handle it. So, one question I frequently get asked is Nixon, how does the Internal Revenue Code impact the sexual marketplace? If I had a nickel for every time a dude asked me that, I'd have $0.00. But it's not going to stop me from talking about it. So, today, student loan sexual strategy. For those of you who follow politics, the Trump administration is reversing most of the Biden administration's policy on student loans. In case you were not aware, the Biden administration was extremely lenient on student borrowers. They had higher forgiveness rates, easier deferments, and they had something called tax-free debt forgiveness. This last one, that's where we're going to be focusing. My personal suspicion is that Biden or Harris or whoever was in charge decided to relax these policies to buy votes from borrowers. It didn't work, at least not in numbers enough to keep them in office. So, tax-free debt forgiveness. This is a little lesson in tax law before we get to the sexual marketplace. If you know what this means, you will understand how it is a lethal economic jab at women. This is an uppercut, an uppercut right into your sister's bank account. So if you weren't aware, the IRS considers any debt forgiveness as taxable income. And in the student loan game, the government owns all student loans or almost all of them. So let's say that you owe $100,000 in student debt. If you owe it to the government will forgive that loan after 20 or 25 years if you cannot pay it off. It's called income-based repayment. If you're a borrower, it's awesome. And millions of you are banking on these loans being forgiven. But what happens after they're forgiven? Under the old traditional rule, if you had, say, $100,000 in student loans and that student debt was forgiven, you would owe taxes as though you earned $100,000 a year. Let's say you also had a job that paid you $100,000 a year. Now you owe taxes on $200,000 for whatever year those loans are forgiven. If you have a 25% tax bracket, that's $50,000 total and 25 just for the debt forgiveness. Maybe more if you borrowed a lot more. When Biden was in office, they did something unique. It had never been done in the history of tax law. They made student loan debt forgiveness tax-free. That had never happened before. So if your student loans were forgiven while Biden was in office, you didn't have that extra tax bill of $25,000. Biden is not in office anymore. Trump has gone back to the old rule. Now, I'm sure a few of you who were no fans of Biden, you probably wouldn't have minded if Trump had kept this tax-free debt forgiveness law on the books. He didn't. And if you've got student loans that you'll never pay back, which the government will forgive, you will owe a hefty tax bill. I strongly recommend that if this is your situation, you plan accordingly, save up for a tax bill whenever those loans are forgiven. By the way, they may change the law back to how it was under Biden. Never know. But I wouldn't bank on it. If they do, then hey, you've got some money back in your pocket. Guess who is going to get fucked by this worse than anybody else? Guys, you watch mids. You are an extremely smart audience. You already know the answer to all your questions is hypergamy. This change hurts women, especially in three ways. First, women have a lot more student debt than men because they enroll in college a lot more than men do. Second, when women graduate and go into the workforce, they tend to avoid high-paying, high-responsibility jobs, making it more difficult for them to earn the money they need to pay it off. Third, women don't understand complex financial arrangements like this. It's not that men are geniuses at them, but between the two, trust me, this is much easier to explain to a guy. So women will not plan for this eventuality. Guys, pour one out for your sisters. They owe a lot of money, and the tide of public policy is turning against them. My sense is that the red pill has so thoroughly moved the Overton window that the trend will continue in favor of men for a long, long time to correct some of these policy errors of the last 45 to 50 years. Unfortunately, if you're an unattractive male, a beta male, a nice guy, an invisible man, don't you dare celebrate. Pour one out for yourself. If you are not savvy to the game that you're playing, even these wins that are supposedly benefiting men, they will turn into losses. At this point, I'll introduce you to Nixon's first law of hypergamy. The beta male always loses in the end. Nice guys truly do finish last. So this is my only advice. Know which game you're playing. Women play the game this way. They literally have a name for it. It's called secure the bag. Women tend to look for a man who will believe her when she dangles the promise of sex, love, or relationships in front of him. She may even give him a little of each of those, and she will keep dangling that promise until she secures the bag. I mean, it's literally, go look it up online. There's an actual name for it. Actually, you don't even need to look it up online because you know it already. Once they get the bag, if it's this type of guy, they withdraw the promises that they had offered to him or let him believe, then they ditch him. When women do this, they tend to feel zero guilt because they don't see beta males as human beings. This is not evil. It is just hypergamy. So whether it's student loans or credit card debt or any other financial catastrophe that a woman gets herself into, the playbook is always the same when it comes to guys like this. Get as much as you possibly can while giving as little as possible in return. Now, women don't target men for bailouts unless they are easy marks. And by the way, women are like really, really good at spotting the type of guy who will fall for this type of dynamic. You are a mids watcher. Of course, you're not an easy mark. So you are very unlikely to be targeted because you're on to the game. So that's great. Unfortunately, if you're not attractive, these same women, even if they need you desperately, they're not going to target you for sex. You will remain invisible. But guys, ask yourself, if this is all that a woman wants from you, do you really want to be visible? And by the way, if you're like, say, a really, really good negotiator in this situation and you're able to secure sex up front, congratulations. Unfortunately, if it's that transactional, it's pretty much prostitution. In case you hadn't realized, this is how bad it is for unattractive men. The clueless ones are targeted for sexless swindling. Royce used to call these guys herbs. The smart ones are not targeted at all. Unless their wealth is just too visible to ignore, then they may get targeted for either. And if they're savvy, maybe they get some transactional sex out of it. Personally, I'd avoid this situation at all costs. Run from financially cancerous women. Instead, get jacked, learn game, build clout. Do these, and you'll have the luxury of dealing with women on your terms, or at least you'll get to keep the value for yourself. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, and final thought. So this corrupted dynamic, I'll call it clown world hypergamy. It's going to be with us for at least a few more decades, and it will continue to get worse. None of us can really fix it on our own, but you can avoid being a victim of it by learning game. This is a lesson in game. Learn it well. Also, try really hard to not resent or scapegoat women for this behavior. It will be difficult, but you can take comfort in Nixon's second law of hypergamy. The surest way to make a woman miserable is to give her exactly what she wants. Fuck the alpha, swindle the beta, forfeit all hopes of love and meaning in your life. Whoa, that got kind of dark. Yeah, let's go ahead and end on a down note. Take care.